Hello everybody, today we're going to do a video on the Rockford Fosgate punch. This is the 4-channel amplifier. I'll put a link to it below in the descriptions. I believe this is a 300 watt amplifier, 75 watts per channel. We're going to be putting this on the 2018 of taking all the pieces and parts off. The video turned out to be like 14 hours long, it seemed. So basically I'm going to put you a link below if you're new to working on bikes. In my description below, or if you look in the playlist, there's a link on how to take off the cowl, how to take off the gas tank, how to take each individual piece off. This video I'm going to start with the cowl off, so if you hear me talking weird in some places, like I said, I did this video as one piece, and I'm going to go back in and try to edit it out the best I can. Now even doing the amplifier mount is a little bit drawn out because I basically fabbed the mount. Made my own mount. I looked on Amazon, looked on eBay, looked all around. All the mounts seem pretty flimsy. People complain about them flopping around, vibrating. Some people said they worked good for a little while and they quit working. So I just went and made my own mount. Made it out of stainless, or not stainless. I keep saying stainless for some reason. It's made out of framing material. It's a truss frame support. So it's probably a 16 or 18 gauge steel. And basically I put it up under the cowl, folded it in, it's already in there, the Fosgate's hidden, ready to go. Now since I have problems playing audio, every time I put audio on my YouTube channel, even though I've only got like 300 subscribers so far, hopefully that'll go up in time, I still keep getting banned because everything I pick to play apparently has license agreements, and it doesn't matter whether it's on there for 5 seconds or 15 seconds, it gets booted. My personal opinion on this amplifier is I did not need it. For my own personal use. Now if you have a Vaquero, I believe the front speakers are 6.5 inch speakers. The problem with an amplifier on this is the speakers are only 5.25 inches. No matter how much juice you put to those speakers, you're not going to get any good bass out of them. Now it is louder, it's much louder, it's probably twice as loud as it was, but I've still got all highs and trebles. So unless you're going to go through the problems or the effort of modifying your front speakers and getting some 6.5s in there, or putting them in the back, or I've seen people put speakers in their side covers, people put speakers in their trunk. Unless you're going to do something like that, to me, honestly, the amp is kind of a waste of money. Now the amp's pretty compact. Online, there is a mounting kit for this. And it actually looks like it fits right in here. I did not buy the mounting kit, so I'm going to find a way to make mine fit here. The reviews on the mounting kit were pretty well mixed. Most of them said cheap piece of metal, could have put it on myself, could have zip tied it in place, could have made my own mount. It looks like it bolted to these two pieces and it just cradled into it. So we're going to try to make our own mount using these two pieces here. There's enough room under that cowl to clear this, so we're going to try to mount it over top of it. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to move my, my relay for my air horn though. Now again, this is going to mount right above the radio. I don't want it on top of the radio because I want it to be able to stay cool. So I'm going to find a way to rig something right here. That way it sits right in here. There's enough space under this cowl to fit plenty. You just got to watch the headlights and once the speaker comes through, the fog's sitting here. So we can't really put anything down here anywhere, so it has to go right up under here. Now as far as wiring goes, if you're just doing the front two speakers, this is a pretty simple job. Your speaker wires are already here, so you can actually use these as the inputs. We're going to cut this off, feed it back up to the amplifier for our left and our right front input. The harder part on mine is I've got rear speakers also, and I want to tie those in. What I don't want to do is I personally don't want to cut into my factory harness. I can get online, find a diagram, cut the tape, tap into my factory harness, feed the wires up into it. So I've already got to take the tank off, and as you can see, I've already fed some accessories up to the front. I'm just going to go ahead and pull 4 wires to the back of the bike and feed the rear speakers right out of that back up into the inside of the amplifier so I can feed it back down the other side. And that way I know for sure I've got the right lines and I don't have to worry about cutting this harness. Extra 2 wires or extra 4 wires ran to the back, but again, it saves you from cutting your factory harness off. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the wiring harness off. I'm going to push this pin on the top. It's pretty hard to push down. I'm going to pull back as I wiggle a little bit, and the harness will come off. I'll pull this piece of tape off of here so I can separate my wires a little bit. I'm sure online there's a manual. I found 4 or 5 of them off the top. and none of the coloring codes matched. So I figured I'd just look at it myself, see if we can figure it out. I know I can get my factory speakers down here. Don't get the speaker that goes up to the speaker itself. Get the wiring harness that comes off of the bike itself from the column. So I'm looking for a red, a white with a black tab, and a black and a red with a gray. So if I look in here, red, white, and a gray, red, black, and a gray. So right here is my speaker wire down here. The other side is orange, black with a gray dot, red, blue with a gray dot. So orange, black with a gray dot, red, blue with a gray dot. And it's blue with a gray dot. Let's see, red, blue. I need red, gray, red, blue with a gray dot. So red, blue with a gray dot, or red, purple with a gray dot. So that's my left front and my right front speakers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a zip tie temporarily. And I'm going to separate those out so I know those are my front speakers. I'm going to pull it tight. Go to the back. Well, my rear speakers are red, blue with a gray dot, and black and white. I see a gray dot on it, but I'm assuming it's black and white with a gray dot. So red and blue with a gray dot, and black and white with a gray dot. So that is one of my rear speakers. And just by looking in the harness, I'm going to guess probably those two right there, that blue. So I'm going to put this in between for now, just to keep them separated. I'm not going to tie it yet because I don't want to isolate them yet. Of course, that's working out perfectly, isn't it? So I've got those two separated. My other two speaker wires are blue, black, and blue, white. Blue, black, and blue, white. So, I believe that's my blue, white. And there's my blue, black. So I'm 99% sure those are my speaker wires. Now, if you're just doing the front speakers, simply run a wire from right here up to the amp, and from right here up to the amp, and then back in your speakers. And that'll take care of the whole system. A whole lot easier than doing the rear speakers. And I still may end up doing that. I may end up pulling 8 wires from the back to the front, 4 to feed in, 4 to feed out, and I might just refeed these 2 wires to the front speakers. Now I have a little advantage. I put sound systems in for a living, so I happen to have a tone generator. What this does is this will send a signal down through the meter and basically make the speaker beep. That's how I find speakers around the house, and I know which room's which. So I'm just going to verify my speaker line location. Now this end is unplugged, so there should be no power coming into this. This is all output from the audio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look on the back here, and I'm going to figure out where my pins are. So looking at this harness here, my colors are at pins 4 and 5. So if I go to the front of this and I count 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to insert a pin here. And number 5, I want to insert the ground there. And if you can hear that, that means I'm in the right one. So that is actually my left rear speaker. So I know pins 4 and 5 are my left rear. I'm going to look down here. Now these two are kind of off to the side. So the 2 pins on the bottom, which is this one and this one, are my other speaker. And I'm making a bad ground here, so that's my fault. So I know for a fact that's my other speaker. So that's my right rear speaker. So left rear 4 and 5, right rear of the bottom 2. Okay, so I've got me a construction worker notepad here. So my blue, red, and gray, blue, red, gray are my right rear, and black, white, gray. My blue, white, gray, and blue, white, gray. I set that other one on. That's blue, red, gray. That's black. Blue, white, gray, and my black, blue, gray are my left rear. Anyhow, make a note the best way you can so you know which one's which. As you can tell how exciting this really is. Basically what we've got to do now is I've got to cut these speaker wires. So the output side of the radio, of course, coming out of the output, I'm going to cut this side here. I'm going to take them and I'm going to feed them into the input side of my amplifier. I'm going to come out of the output side of my amplifier and back into the wire again. So basically I'm going to divert this up through the amp and then down to my speakers. Now if you're doing the fronts only, you could easily run new wires to the front speakers, which I will probably do. My rear speakers, I'm not so worried about the power. Again, I'm doing this more for just an experiment and just to hear a little bit better. I'm not going to crank my music anyhow. But my rear speaker wires, I'm probably just going to use the factory rear wires. It's probably a 22 gauge wire, maybe a 20. So you're not going to get a super lot of power down there, but you're only going 6 or 8 feet too. It's not like you're going 50 feet, 100 feet across a house. So for what this little amplifier is going to do, it's probably going to be plenty. Now I did take a zip tie and run it through here. That's not permanent, of course. That's just so I can work on it. If I bump it or something, I'm not going to knock it down and knock another dent in my fender, which I picked up on the road the other day. Somebody flung a rock at me, bounced off the headlight, hit the fender, knocked a hole in it, but that's beside the point. So I've just got that zip tied in place so I can work on it for now. Now if you've done car stereos before or other stereos, these do have low-level inputs on them. This radio does not have a low-level output on it. A lot of cars, or when I used to do cars all the time, you had to buy a high-low converter. You can get those at Walmart and basically convert the high-level wires to low-level inputs. This particular amplifier, it even says in the manual, basically what we're going to do, since they've separated the RCA, you've got a positive and a ground even on an RCA. The positive's in the middle, the ground's on the outside. We're going to nip these harnesses off, and we're going to use the color coding on here, which is marked on the back of the amplifier and also in the manual. So our input's going over here, output's coming over here. I want to hook this up and I'm going to run everything before I put everything back together because I want to be able to adjust my gain. I might want to turn the rear speakers up more than the front speakers. Mount or wired up, tested, then we're going to make a mount for this line. I'm going to go to Lowe's tomorrow, see if I can find it so it lines up with our tabs, and we're going to mount it to that piece of metal. So I'm going to start by getting my speaker wires cut in first because those are going to be a little bit time consuming. I want to try to reroute them. I might have to extend them because they're definitely not going to reach from here to here, back to here. So, all right, so what I've done is I went ahead on my amp, since it's easier to get to now. I set my amp to all pass. So basically I get high and low pass. So I get, if you were doing a subwoofer, you would switch it to low pass. If you were just doing tweeters, you would do high pass. I want everything to come through my speaker, so I've set my front and rear channel to all pass. I turned my gain up a little bit, so I made both of them at 7, just so they're even. I've got it switched to 4 channel up here, and I'm not exactly sure what that is yet. It says you can adjust the voltage, but I'm not going to mess with that. I'm going to leave it where it is from the factory. I'm sure somebody will put a comment on below, and if you do know what it is, let me know so I'll know in the future. I'm going to start with my fronts, since that's the easy part. Again, we're going to cut this harness off, so I'm just going to take this, nip it, get rid of the RCA ends. I'm going to strip the ends back about 1/4 inch. I'm going to go ahead and put my jumper on first because, again, I'm going to go ahead and pull. Instead of cutting my entire harness, I'm going to cut what I need as I go. since my wires are right here and right there, I'm just going to feed a 4-conductor wire up behind the frame here and a 4-conductor wire from the frame there. And I've already got my inputs here. Now I tagged my hot and my ground when I tore it apart in the first place to put in the speaker upgrade. If you need to know how to do the positive and negative, I've got another video online that shows you how to determine which side is positive and which. Now another thing to remember when you're stripping wire, this is a 16 gauge wire. It's a 4-conductor. Again, I do house wiring, so I've got 4-conductor 16 all day. Make sure you use the right number on your wiring. Don't cut it at 18, even though 18 will cut it. If you cut it at 18, you're going to strip off some of the strands of wire. So make sure you use whatever size wire it is and strip it off. If not, you'll cut the outside jacket or the outside wiring, and you'll actually make it an 18 gauge wire instead of a 16 or whatever size you're working with. So make sure you use the right size cutting for the right size wire. And again, about 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to join these two together with a butt. Now what I've done is I've taken my harness that I cut off. This is my input for the left side. This is my input for the right side. So I've got my 4-conductor wire. I'm going to use my red black as my input and my white green as my output. And the same on the other side. Red black's my input, white green's my output. And the wiring harness diagram is on the chart. Basically white and gray, or white and black and white, gray and black and gray. And same on the other one will be purple and black. So after I've done that, I'm going to cut these so they're equal length. Now I haven't terminated the other ends yet. So I've made an equal length wire. And I'll terminate them once I feed them down and get them in place. So essentially what I'm going to do, my green and green whites, again, that's going to be my output. My red and red blacks are my input. So I'm going to go to the front side of the amp, plug in here. I'm going to feed this one underneath the harness, and I've left enough wire since the harness isn't quite long enough that I can feed all the way to the other side. And my excess wire I'm going to tuck right up under there. This wire is going to drop this way, and the other wire is going to drop down and out the other side. I'm going to feed out that way and down to the speaker on that side. Now you can feed these however you want. I've just got a nice straight path to the back there. And again, all my wiring connections will be up under here. And on this side, here's my wire coming out for my amp. Again, I'm going to drop this down back here. Now I took off a couple of the other things I've done. I did like the air horn and stuff like that on an earlier video. Again, my relay was up in here. I'm going to relocate some of this stuff. So when I unhook things, I already know where it goes. I just put a little label on them so I know where the ground's going. This extra wire going to the relay I left on there for whatever reason, I'll cut it all off, shorten it up. I'll probably tuck the relay up under here now since I've got room. And I'm trying to not shake the camera too much, but this is the other side. This is where my wires popped out at. This is my output side. It's up here front and rear. I'll plug this into the front since we're working on the front right now. So basically all I gotta do is connect my speaker wires to my red and black, and then take my white and green and actually feed it straight to the speaker. Same coming down on this side. When I strip this off, red and black will be my input. So I'll hook the red and black from here. And again, this is just coming off the wiring harness without cutting the harness. Feed into here. You could cut it up above that if you want. I'm gonna leave the factory connector on there because you never know. I sell the bike, trade the bike. I might pull all this out and want to put the factory stuff back in it. So I try to leave that on there. Feed it up into here. It's going to go to the inside, out the outside, and into the speaker. Now, if it works easier for you to run two conductors down here, you can do that. Again, I'm just used to using 4-conductor wire. So again, what I'm going to do, this is my hot wire coming from my radio. I'll tie my hots into here. This is my input for my amp. These two wires are going to go to my speaker. So if you want to put two ends on them, run them straight to the speaker, you can. I'm going to use the factory harness that came with the pokes just so it's easier for me to pop on there. Now since the video is going to be a little bit longer than what some people are going to like, again, I take a little bit more time doing these. Hopefully people like it better. Again, what I've done, positive from my original harness into the inside of my amp, out, back into my speaker leads. Now I drop my cone in here just so I could make sure I had enough wire on the end, because I'm trying not to leave a whole lot of excess, but I do want to be able to reach the speaker wire from the front so I can hook my speaker up. And I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other side. Okay, I've repeated on this side, same thing. Dropped my cone in, made sure my speaker wire was long enough, tied my positive and negative in. So again, red, black are my feed in, white, green are my feed out. So my front speakers are now wired into the amplifier. We've still got to do, of course, the hot and the ground and the key on for it, but as far as wiring the front speakers in, they're wired in. Now, one more thing when I'm doing stuff like this, besides mounting the amp to here, I haven't zip tied anything in place. I haven't really tied anything down. Everything's just kind of floating. I want to get it all in here. I want to get it working. I want to test it before I tie everything up in place. A couple reasons. One, of course, if something doesn't work, you don't have to tear the whole thing apart. And second of all, sometimes when you route stuff, when you're putting it back together, you change your mind. And it's easier to change your mind when it's not all tied down. Now, I know from working on this bike with other things in the past, these two leads right here beside the radio, the one with the black and yellow line is a ground. The one with the, I can't really tell, it looks like a orange or tan line, that's a key on hot. So basically I'm gonna pull my key on from right here up to my amp. And again, the instructions say run the ground to the battery, so I'm actually gonna run 2 wires from here back to the battery. And up under here again, like I said, you can see I've already got a bunch of stuff zip tied together in here. So I'm going to follow this same path. What you want to make sure, if you're feeding underneath your tank, you got to be careful when you lift up. You don't want your wires to get smashed in there, so you would have to try to fish underneath of this or under here, but you don't want to get wires on your heads. You don't want to burn them up. So again, if you've got the time to take it off, this takes much longer while you're trying to film it than it does to actually take the couple bolts out and pick it up off there. But at least you know if it's off of there, you're not going to end up with a wire laying on the head and you're not going to burn something up. Okay, so the next thing I did is I went through here and I did all the zip ties that were holding all my wiring together in the first place. I pulled out an extra wire that I had ran to the front for whatever reason. That's my horn harness, so I know what that is, where I pulled the factory horn off and hooked up the air horn. These are my camera wires and a couple ground wires I'd ran to the back. I'd ran off the chassis. So I'm going to fish my primary positive and negative now from the battery area to the front of the bike. And just a little side note, I took my positive and negative I'm feeding back through and I have taped a good section of them together. So when I pull this through the bike, it basically won't look like a red and black wire going through there. So I've left enough over here to connect to my battery. And then I'm going to pull this through the front and we'll cut this off what's left over once I get it through the front of the bike. But you don't have to do that. I just taped them together so it would look better. And since I've already got a bunch of wires going through here, if I ever have to go back into here, I'll know that those two taped together are my battery wires. So what I did, I went through here, straight back, came down my frame rail, stayed behind the factory harnesses, followed the rest of the lines down through here that were from the factory, followed my camera wires. And I pulled the rubber grommet off of here. This just snaps underneath there because I was getting kind of full, so I actually had to pull it off so I could see where I could go. I came up and through here, and then again I've just left enough back here that I can get to my battery. Now being that I've already got all these other wires going through here, I've made the decision I'm going to cut my wiring harness up front. So again, I know the color codes here. I've already toned out the wires. So basically I'm going to cut my wires and feed my rear speakers off of the radio deck. So with that being said, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and zip tie all this back up. And again, making sure don't zip tie your speaker wire to your spark plug wire either. You'll end up with a constant buzz or pop in your speakers. Try to stay off your coil also. And just zip tie everything up out of the way where it won't get pinched in the gas tank. Or won't get sliced off by something else, won't get hot, won't lay on top of your head, even though these are plastic covers. Tie it up the best you can. Alright, got everything from the battery forward zip tied. So zip tied here, got here, reattached my strap, made sure nothing's binding, nothing's pinching. Zip tied up high so I'm nowhere near the head, nowhere near the fuel line, nowhere near my fuel pump line. I pulled this rubber piece up so I could get under here. I made sure I'm clear of my mounting tab. tied everything up, and then I went ahead and covered up some of the other wires I had hanging out in there while I had it open. Now this video gets a little redundant in some places. Some of you have already seen some of the videos I've done. But basically, since we're doing something for somebody who might not know what's going on here, what I've done is I've cut my first 2 speaker wires. I've got a voltmeter here. I've turned it to DC. I've turned it to 2,000 millivolts. So basically, I'll pick up really low currents. I turned the radio on, and I'm going to touch the positive and the negative. Now, if you see the numbers on there, they're negative 10 right now. So my positive is on the blue-white wire. If I flip it around and put it on the blue and black wire, I get a positive number. So I know for a fact that my blue and black wire are my positive, the blue and white wire are my negative. So I went ahead and put my butt connectors on the end of here. I'm going to hook this up to my amp. So this is my output for my rears. Since I just cut these and we just checked this, and again, the positive is the blue and black wire. I'm going to go output into these. Okay, here's my other harness I made. I made this one a lot longer because I'm going to feed this one under here, kind of like we did on the other side. So all my wires come out of the same side of my amplifier. Got these and I'll reach my lines. So I'll plug this into this side. Now these are going to be my inputs. Where'd they go? Right here. So I still use the red and black for input, the white and greens for output, or the other lines. So these are going to be my input lines. Now the purple is the right and the green is the left. So there's my purple and there's my green. Sorry, I know that looks confusing on there, but it's a little bit easier when you're doing it yourself and not trying to watch it on a camera. So I've hooked up my output down my lines back to there, and I'm going to do my other side now. So I've cut the line, I fished this underneath, so this is going to be my left side. So I need to figure out which one's positive and negative. So again, the radio's on. I'm going to turn the key on to auxiliary. I'm not going to start the engine. Won't start anyhow, there's no gas tank, but, and again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to touch negative to positive, or negative and the positive. I got a positive number there, so I know on this side my blue and black are hot, my blue and white are negative. So blue and black hot, blue and white are not. All right, looking in here, I've got my auxiliary power wire drop down, AP. I've got my ground wire to the battery. I got my positive to the battery. These are my lines coming in, and what I did is I went ahead and split this since I was already here, and ran the battery up to my air horn, which should have been in the first place instead of using the key on. So I spliced into that, so I've got a constant hot here, good ground here, so I've grounded my air horn back. But as far as the amp goes, this is ready to plug in. I'm going to drop my key on into the not black and yellow. And again, I can't really get in there to get a good color. Stuck my voltmeter in there, but it's this one right here. So the black and yellow is your ground for sure. So this is going to be my key on. So I'm going to plug into that. So there's my key on, and I'll have to just flip this into here. And then we're ready to go underneath and hook up onto the battery. Okay, so key on's there. Got my amplifier plugged in. Speaker wires are all wired up. I'm not zip tied anything in place yet because I want to test it all before I do anything. This is all tied up. I'm going to put my relay for this up under the horn because there's plenty of room under there. And I don't have to worry about grounding something out. I flipped my fuse here. So my fuse is right there. So if I do blow the fuse for the horn, I can pull the speaker out to get to my fuse. Some people have asked, there's my Cool Stream Duo, which is my streamer. Again, I've got it double taped underneath the speaker cone, so it's not taking up my glove box, but I can pull this out if I ever have to replace it. So let's get underneath the battery, hook up the battery, and we'll put some juice to it, see what it sounds like. So our battery cover's got 2 screws in it. One is supposed to be right there, which whoever took this bike apart last time, me, apparently lost, and the other one's down in this hole here. So I'm going to take these 2 screws out. I'm going to do this while holding the camera if possible. I'll try not to drop that screw down in there. If I do, it looks like the belt's right underneath it, so it should bounce right out the bottom if I drop it. Once I've got that screw loose, and again, after you got that screw loose, your battery cover will lift up out of here. Now you got to kind of wiggle it around the wires. Since I've got a ton of stuff in here, got to make sure I don't pull anything out of place. And it pops up out of there. And the wire I popped out was my key on for my cameras. So I've read different places. I'm going to put a 20 amp inline fuse in this. I'm going to put the inline fuse in first. I'm going to make a jumper off of the hot to the battery. So the inline fuse should sit like right in here with this other inline fuse. I'm going to run the ground straight to here. I'm going to put a couple eye hook terminals on there and put them underneath the battery terminals. So I've got my eye hooks on. Negative, positive, I'm going to hook straight to the battery. I've got my inline fuse in. There's not a fuse in here yet, so when I power up to it, it's still not going to be powered up till I put the fuse in. I've left myself enough room to put the fuse up here, make me a little bundle of wires over here, so I've got extra in case I need to cut into it or move it. Once I get done, I'm going to put the battery terminals on. I'm going to tie this in place so it's out of the way. We'll pop the front speakers back in. We'll turn it on, see what it sounds like. Okay, my battery's connected. Got my negative, got my positive. Pull the boot back over best as possible. I'll probably take a knife and slit this so it slides down over it better. That's my key on for my cameras. I'm going to pop the frames back in, put the speakers in, turn it on, see what it sounds like. So the moment of truth. 20 amp fuse is installed. Key on.
Try a P3 Advanced. Free. Just pay shipping and handling. No strings attached, no obligations, and no commitments to buy. This is a 30-day supply. Absolutely.
Volume all around. Horn works. So zip tie my wires together and put everything up together up here. Zip tie this up. Put my relay up where it doesn't ground out on anything. And we're good to go. We're going to put it all back together, take it for a drive, see what it sounds like when it's all assembled. Again, basically I just want to make sure I had sound coming out of my speakers, which I do. They're not going to sound the same if they're not screwed into those cones, but at least I've got volume coming out of them. It's all equal, there's nothing funny going on. Okay, everything's zip tied in place. Zip tied my extra speaker wires. I left myself enough slack. I'm going to tuck that through the hole. Same on the other side. I tucked everything back up. I reattached my cool stream to the bottom of this. Again, that's for the Bluetooth. I can pull this out, get to that if I have to. I can reach up here and get my fuse for my relay if something goes wrong with the horn. So I can access everything through this hole without having to tear the front end apart again. The fuse for the radio is back there under the seat, so if that blows, I've got access to it. So we're ready to put the front end back on it. Under the seat, I went ahead and popped the battery cover on. Everything's zip tied under here. So I'll probably start by putting the gas tank on. We'll reassemble it. Again, that was the installation of Rockford Fosgate 300 4-channel amplifier, 2018 Kawasaki Voyager. After I got the bike back together, turned it on, started playing with it, my gains were too high. Now, as you know, the amplifier's up underneath the cowl. So I got lucky. I pulled out the right-hand speaker, and I could actually reach my hand up in there and adjust the gain, so I turned them down a little bit. So at least you know you can do that if for some reason your gains are too high and you need to turn it back down. Overall, again, as I said at the beginning, to me, those 5 1/4 inch speakers are way too small to put an amplifier on. For me personally, that was not a good investment. But me, I'll probably end up eventually upgrading the speakers again anyhow, finding some way to get some bigger speakers on there. So I hope everyone enjoyed the video. It's 80 degrees and sunny in Myrtle Beach. I'm going to head to the beach and do some riding.